You represented Maria Butina during one of the most politically charged moments in recent history when the media branded her a foreign spy and the government moved aggressively to make an example out of her. You saw firsthand how narratives form, how the government pressures defendants, and how quickly a case becomes political. Your book, In Wolf's Clothing, lays out all of that: the government overreach, the media frenzy, the intelligence back channels, and what actually happened behind the scenes. Tell us about this story. What did the government claim she did wrong exactly?
So they charged her. I guess I'll start here. Maria was a 20 something Russian grad student at American University who came to Washington because she believed in dialogue. She wanted to understand how Americans think about freedom and gun rights. She was idealistic, she was ambitious, and maybe a little naive. And she was fascinated by the openness of American politics and the idea that people could organize around shared interests. In another time, I think she would have been seen as a student activist trying to build connections. But in this particular case, timing mattered a lot. Maria was arrested in July 2018, right in the middle of what felt like a second Red Scare. Maria's indictment was announced just 3 days before the Helsinki summit between Presidents Trump and Putin, which was a highly anticipated meeting aimed at improving improving relations between the United States and Russia after years of growing tension. To me, the case should have been handled as a regulatory matter, a fine, a warning, or an administrative approach that would be appropriate to what she did. Instead, the government charged her with serious felonies, violating Section 18 USC 951 that carried a maximum penalty of 10 years, as well as conspiracy to violate that same law, which carried an additional 5 years, which gave her a maximum potential prison sentence of up to 15 years.
But what are they saying she did? I mean, what do they claim? So she comes here, she wants to just learn, she wants to see, but what did they say was the crime that you say should have just been a fine?
So they say that she conducted an influence operation on behalf of the Russian government. And
Okay.
she pleaded guilty to acting as an agent for Alexander Torshin, Torshin, a Russian central banker and politician who acted as Maria's mentor. And she kept him informed of her networking activities here in the United States, which is why the government charged her with those particular crimes for acting as an agent of a foreign official without prior notification to the Attorney General. But I want to be particularly here specific about something. She was never charged with espionage. She was not charged with being a spy. And you don't have to take my word for that. The government would say the same thing. She was not charged with espionage. She was not a spy.
So what did they so they're claiming in their narrative that they put together that when she was in Russia, she connected with this guy who was it the gentleman that you mentioned, is he in the Russian government, or is he just a rich Russian?
No, he was worked for the Russian central bank. Alexander Torshin was his name.
Okay. So is that a government position?
It's a government official position, yes.
Okay. So, just because, our Fed is not technically government, it's like, or to kind of depend, just, I'm not sure how they set it up there. Okay. So she was connected with this guy, her mentor, and they're claiming that because she came here, did he pay her way to come here or something? And so they're like, oh, you came with this guy's money and he set up the operation and you reported back to him. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what they're...
he never paid her. She was never employed by the Russian government. The government says that she acted as a foreign agent for him.
But how do you say he's a
And
foreign agent if she's not getting paid, right? I mean, that's like, what makes somebody an agent versus my friend that I talk to on the phone? I mean, I guess I'm the agent of all the people I talk to on the phone, even none of them pay me. I mean, how do they say, okay, you're an agent now?
yeah, you're making really good points, and I agree with them. We have lots of agents here in the United States. lots of foreign agents here who were here in the United States. The difference is that those people informed the U.S. government in advance that they were here. Maria didn't. She didn't because she didn't know. Had she known
Well,
that
but
she
she
had to,
wasn't paid by this guy, right? But she wasn't paid. If she wasn't paid by the guy, how could she be an agent? How would she even? Why would she even need to disclose that if she wasn't working for him?
yeah, the government takes the view that doing things for them, agreeing to do something for a foreign government or a foreign official, could impose a requirement on you to register with the Attorney General in advance before and disclose what your activities are. And she did that. So there are instances that Alexander Torshin asked her to talk about a meeting that she went to. Not a meeting. I think she attended the announcement for Scott Walker. He asked her to write something on that, and so she did, and she sent it to him. She ended up like translating some Wikipedia articles that she read online. Nothing was. She didn't come up with like concepts of her own. She just translated into Russian these articles that she read online, and she sent it to him. And the government believed that that was enough.
Okay. Seems like that could be twisted in a million different ways depending on the case, right? It's like if I call my family members back home, if I'm in some foreign country and they're like, "Oh, what does this say?" and I translate it, I'm now an agent, apparently. I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah. This is
interesting.
why I was saying that to me, it seems like the matter should have been handled as a regulatory matter, but instead,
Yeah,
we have this saying where don't make a federal case out of it, meaning don't turn something small into like a huge federal prosecution. But that's kind of exactly what happened here. When you look at what Maria was actually accused of, networking, meeting people, trying to promote dialogue, to say Russia is a friend and not a foe, to me, it could have been handled in a completely different way. She would have, like, as I mentioned, she would have registered as a foreign agent had she known she had to. She wasn't acting covertly, rather openly. To me, this seemed like a called for an administrative response, not a full blown federal prosecution. And the
yeah.
government instead elevated it into something that it never needed to be. But remember, this timing matters. She, in some ways, became a proxy for Russia at a time when people were desperate for accountability. The public wanted someone to blame for election interference, and Maria was an easy target.
Yeah.
Um, but as I explained in the book, that's not how justice to me is supposed to work. You don't convict symbols; you convict people based on evidence.
Did this shake your view of the justice system at all? I mean, this whole case and how they went after her and how you thought this should just be a regulatory fine issue and they're threatening this young girl with 10 years in prison. And did this shake your whole view of the system?
I think that the case showed me how much media influences everybody greatly. Um, um, this is how many get their information. Average Americans don't know people connected to world events or politics, so they're getting most of their information from the media. And people in the media are earnest journalists. They may get things wrong. I think that we can all expect errors, especially when news is breaking. I get that. Um, but if you're pushing a narrative, that narrative is going to get through, and it's a problem when that narrative is ahead of the facts.
How do you think so? Explain how that exactly influenced this case. I mean, I would think that the attorneys should be aware, there's what the media says, but then you're an attorney, you're supposed to stick to the facts, you're supposed to stay and play within the bounds of the justice system. How exactly would you say that media influenced? Was it a jury that was influenced? Was it the judge that was influenced? Was it the attorneys that were influenced? Like, who was influenced?
So take one of the government's most explosive claims that portrayed her as this honeypot type figure or real life Red Sparrow. Early on, prosecutors claimed that she traded sex for access, which was a sensational charge that made intentional headlines overnight based on a misreading of a text message. within days, the government quietly walked it back because it wasn't true. That one line, though, had already done damage. And once something like that is out there, you can't unring that bell. It shows how quickly a narrative can outrun the facts, and how it's sometimes hard to get fairness back once the story takes on a life of its own.
Sure, but that's with the public. I mean, how did that influence then the case itself? Because if the public thinks one thing, who cares? I mean, it matters when there's a jury, I think, and then it's hard finding the right jurors who aren't tainted. I can understand that. But outside of that, how could it possibly? I mean, it seems like the rest of the justice system should be aware of this and insulated from it just by being rational people.
Yeah, the justice system depends on restraint, on waiting until you have the facts before you hurt someone's reputation. And I think that's something that we should all want, no matter our politics.
Right. So are you saying that the prosecutors were tainted by the media, you think? And that they then ran with these and wanted to go further and prosecute her with more severe crimes because the media kind of sensationalized it?
I think that the prosecution made errors, that they made statements. I think that the media heard those statements, and they took them and they ran with them. They believed what they heard from the government, and all of that influenced the public and public opinion greatly.
And so do you think that prosecutors, I mean, I'm sure this happens all the time, even, especially with high profile cases. But do you think then prosecutors were like, well, people are screaming about this woman being the actual Russian agent who was honeypotting these people? So do you think then they said, well, then we have to, kind of like in other cases we hear about when it's like a murder case and it's high profile and people want somebody arrested, and cops will go and they'll arrest somebody. And, we find out years later it was the wrong guy, but it didn't matter at the time. People just wanted somebody. And then the prosecutors are like, okay, we just need to close this. We just need to win this case. It's just about winning the case. And so we got the person. And even they might even be looking at this case and being like, I don't think this is the right person. But they go forward with it anyway. And then again, like we find out 30 years later, this guy is sitting on death row. And we find out through DNA evidence he wasn't even guilty. And there were plenty of witnesses said the guy's not guilty. He was with me. He had like alibis and stuff. I mean, we hear about these cases happening, and really what it boiled down to when they investigate and find out how did this happen, and it happens time and time again, is because of the political pressure that is on the cops and that's on the prosecutors to just get this case closed. We just need to nail somebody for this. We need this. Politically, we need this. Otherwise we're going to have pitchforks coming for us because people are so angry that we're not getting the right person. I mean, is that what you're saying? Like that's the influence that was on maybe the prosecutors, the whole Russiagate hysteria, and they just wanted somebody, and they were like, here's the somebody.
I think there are factors that raised real questions about motivation and timing. It's partly why I wrote the book. But I want to be careful not to assign blame to like any one person, but rather to encourage people to ask whether the process is happening fairly, whether the process is happening justly.
Well, it seems like it didn't. What ended up happening with her? What did she have to go to jail?
She did. She pleaded guilty after serving 18 months. She made her way back home to Russia. Today, she became somewhat of a poster child for U.S. government overzealousness, and she turned that notoriety into a platform. And she currently serves in the Russian Duma, which is their lower house of parliament, kind of like our House of Representatives.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Are you like going after this style of case now more and more? Or are you now like, never mind, I don't want to do those kinds of cases?
I think that my co-counsel and we've been fortunate to take on serious cases. In the years following her sentence, I've been fortunate to handle other high-profile matters. We've represented the White House Chief of Staff and CEOs of publicly traded companies. We've stood among a small set of attorneys who represented multiple clients before the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. We helped many witnesses chart some of the rocky shoals of grand jury subpoenas from Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into President Donald Trump. And we helped resolve some other headline-grabbing criminal and civil cases. And I like to think that this is all because our North Star was due process, logic, merit. I like to say that I represent people, not causes.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you first took on this case, you had a lot of pushback. A lot of people were pretty against you taking this case. What made you do it anyway? And how did you respond to them when they were pressuring you to not represent Maria?
In some ways, I wrote the book to say that this is the case. When everyone tells you not to do it, that's when you should do it.
Okay. Okay. Good advice.
Yeah,
well, when everyone says jump off the bridge, don't do it. Don't jump off the bridge. So, I mean, I guess the logic stands.
Well, I wanted to give people a real insider look at what it's like to navigate a high stakes case, to defend someone when the entire world seems to have made up its mind.
Yeah.
Most people saw Maria's story only through the headlines, and I wanted to show everything else.
Yeah.
So when people were telling me, don't do it, don't do it, I think the book says all the reasons why you should. It gives you like the human moments. It tells a story about the decisions, the complicated scenarios that come up. So the book is really about like the human story behind the headlines and how these big legal battles can unfold.
How were you presented with the case to begin with?
Fun story, and something that I also talk about in the book. I actually overheard a terse phone call in the office next to mine. It was between who would become my co-counsel, Bob Driscoll, and the prosecutor. I walked over and said it sounded like an interesting case, and that's how I got involved.
Okay.
Like within days, like it quickly became something so extreme in the press. And I certainly found myself representing someone at the center of one of the most politically charged investigations in years. But it started out of a routine walk next door to ask a colleague of mine, do you need help? And he said yes, and that's how I got involved.
How did he get the case?
So he got it through Maria. Maria was in need of a lawyer, and he said yes, and he represented her before one of the Senate Intel committees. Brought her in to answer all the questions it had, and eventually the government chose to prosecute the matter, and we kept it since then.
Okay. Is there anything more to her? I mean, is there further cases against her continuing, or is this done now with her?
Oh, this case is closed. It ended, I want to say, in 2019.
But she can never come back to the United States to visit.
As part of her, because she was charged with a particular crime under immigration law, it is considered, it's treated with like certain severity. She wouldn't be allowed, there would be a ban on her to be able to return to the United States for, I want to say like 10 or 15 years. But I don't think that she has any intention to come back to the United States.
I mean, why would anybody, when this type of thing happens to you? But then again, I don't know. I watched that one documentary on Netflix of that girl in Italy that got charged and convicted, and she went back. She went back. She just, and her thing was, she just said, I don't want to taint my view of this wonderful country with my experience. She's like, I want to love Italy in a different way. And it was like, oh man, I don't know if I would have the courage to go back after something like that. So I understand. Alfred, go ahead.
No, I just want to point out that I think something that would surprise a lot of Americans is how genuinely curious and idealistic she was about the United States. Even though she may not want to come back here because of what happened to her, she wasn't anti-American at all. And she was kind, she was thoughtful, she was ambitious, she was hardworking. And that's a different picture than the one people saw or heard about on TV or the news.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.